Fields are at the core of how data is managed in Layer. Inside of any category is a list of fields defining what types of data can be attached to elements or items in that category. So if we're looking at the product specs category here, you can see I have a list of products. The columns shown here are fields representing the data that we can connect to these products. So we have fields that allow us to select a manufacturer, a type, a status, attach product images, define a unit cost, upload a cut sheet, and more. The key thing to understand about Layer fields is that you can define these fields to hold any type of information. For example, I can create a new field by clicking on this plus button here. This brings up our list of field types, which I'll go through in detail in a little bit. We can select any field type and design that field to hold whatever type of information we're looking to hold. So for example, let's say that I wanted to assign each one of these products to a person on my team. I can use a person field, and when I click on that person field, it's going to ask me how I want that field designed. So I'm going to call this assign to. We can add a description and then choose a selection mode. Every field type has its own options or settings that we can set down here. A person field allows us to select one person or multiple people to attach to these items. Once I create this field, I can add this field to this table view, and you can see that now I can assign it to each product. So for any field, I can click on it in this table, and it will allow me to assign each one of these items to an individual. You'll notice that for each item or element that I open, the assigned to field is present, but it has its own unique value. And that's because I can assign a unique value to each item in this list. As I go down the list, I can update these fields accordingly. Let's talk about the different types of fields inside Layer, because we have lots of different options you can choose from. To review this, I'll go into a category I created called Field Examples. Field Examples is a category where I added a bunch of different field types. If I click on an item, you'll see a list of fields showing all the different field types inside of Layer. Starting at the top, we have our barcode field. The barcode field is a special field type that allows you to enter a barcode, but on mobile devices, it actually allows you to scan barcodes or QR codes. And what it does is it enters that code directly into this field. And so what this allows you to do is on a mobile device, you can scan a barcode or QR code, and it immediately opens up the element that has that barcode attached to it. Next up is date fields. Date fields allow you to select a date where you have some pre-populated options above, or you can select the date down below. Once you select the date, the field is populated with that date, and you can remove the date by clicking the X button there. The next field we'll talk about is the email field. The email field allows you to enter an email. Once you format the email, you can click here to copy the email address and send a message. The next field we have here is a file field, and this allows me to select files to upload to Layer. File fields allow you to upload any file type, and whatever file type you've uploaded, you can click on that file and view it in our file viewer. In this case, I'm looking at a PDF, and I can open that up directly inside of Layer and view all this information. Layer also allows you in the file viewer to annotate, measure, or insert stamps directly into the PDF. For example, I can circle this item, or we can add text or other annotations. Let's say we want to cloud this section. I can use that annotation to do that. File fields also allow you on your mobile devices to open your device's camera. You can snap multiple pictures, and all of those pictures will be attached in this item under the file field. In order to reorder files in a file field, you can click on this button here. This allows you to drag and drop to change the order. All I have to do is click Done Reordering, and that's complete. Each file can also be renamed, and you can add a caption to the file itself. So let's say this is an equipment cut sheet, and that caption will show up here and is usable on document deliverables as well. Lastly, you can download each file in this menu. Next, we have our formatted text field. A formatted text is a way to capture text that I want to format. We might be taking meeting notes. I can add those notes, create lists, and create to-do lists as well. Where I can check these off. If you are in a meeting, any formatted text field can be maximized to the full screen editor. That will give you more real estate to edit this information. You can use tools like linking, hyperlinking, highlighting, and text color. One nice part about the formatted text field is that you can mention specific people and they'll get notified that they were mentioned inside of this note. You can also mention other elements from your project. So for example, let's say that I need Maria to upload the model. I can mention Maria in this to-do item. Let's say I need to update the following room materials. I can mention with a hashtag those specific rooms. So maybe I need to mention Office 127 and Conference 116. You can mention those rooms directly inside of your notes, and now those are hyperlinked to go to those elements. If I close out of the full screen editor, you'll see that when I click on this, it's going to take me to Office 127, and I can see all the details of this Office 127. The formatted text field has some options that allow you to select the defined text area height. For example, if you want this to be smaller or take up less real estate in your element editor, you can choose small and it will reduce the height of that field. All right, next we have our number field. The number field itself can hold any numeric value, and you can change the format by clicking on this number format here. So I can choose a number, integer, currency, or percentage. Next, we have our range field, and range has quite a few options, but they result in a number or a set of numbers. So you can see that I can drag this knob to set the upper limits and the lower limits. The number that returns is twofold because if I edit the field, I've set a minimum, maximum, and a step size. I've defined a unit as inches. I've chosen to set an upper and lower knob. For example, let's say that I only wanted it to be one knob, the minimum is 0, and the max is 100, and I want to step in 10. My units are score. I can now drag this to define the actual score for this item, and you can see it goes in the steps that I defined and goes up to 100. Person fields, we've already talked about this one, but this is where I can select an individual from my project team. So anybody that's on your project team can be selected in a person field. And for any person field, you can click to set one or set multiple people. So if I choose select multiple, this now will allow me to select multiple individuals inside of this field. The phone number field allows you to enter a phone number. And once the number is entered, you can see that there's a call action button at the end of the input. So it formats the phone number for you and then allows you to call that number by clicking on this button here. Select fields allow you to choose from a drop-down preset of options. and populate the input. So in this case, we've got the status field set up. If I wanted to add some additional options, I can click here to edit the field, and I can define more options. So let's say we're going to add an on hold option, and I can choose the color for those options to the right. A few other important notes about select fields. If I want to allow someone to select multiple options, I can choose the select multiple option here. Select one just allows them to select one option at a time. Alternatively, you can also allow options to be created by typing into the input. So for example, in the select field, if I start typing on hold, you'll see that it populates the option, but if I say on order, you can see that it shows there's no option available. With the select field, you can click here to allow options to be created at selection. I can start typing on order, and you'll see it'll pop up an option where I can create an item in a select field by clicking. And now on order is an option I can choose from on my list. Lastly, with select fields, we allow you to define a value for each option optionally. If I click on this button, it gives me a few additional options in the settings. I'm going to choose to show the value within the option. You can define the number format you want to use for the value. For example, let's say we want this to be a percentage complete, where draft is 0, open is 10%, on hold is 30%, in progress is 50%, order up here to 75%, and complete is 100%. Every item I select will have an embedded value that I can use in a formula field to calculate based on that. So if I'm looking across multiple elements, I can calculate off of this number. Text fields are the most basic field type inside of Layer. All it does is accept a text into unformatted text into the input. So I can say this is example text, and you can see the text input accepts it. Lastly, for our general field types, we have our toggle field. The toggle field toggles true or false, like a checkbox. It's false when it's off, and it's true when it's on. Toggle fields always have a value. It's either false or true. It's never empty. Okay, that does it for the general fields inside of Layer. And you'll notice that in this example, I have a field group that I've placed all these under called general fields. Field groups, you can click to toggle them and collapse the entire group of fields. I'm going to add a new field group for metadata and add our field types into this metadata group. I can click here to add a new field. We've covered all of these general fields. If I keep scrolling, you'll see that I can create metadata fields as well, like created at, created by, etc. So I'm going to choose created at and create another one for created by. I'm going to create another one for updated at. And I'm going to create another one for updated by. And lastly, I'm going to create one for the element number. If I close out of this now, you can see that I have a metadata section or group that contains these fields I created. And you'll see that all of them are populated, and that is because metadata fields always have a value that is read-only, meaning we can't change the created at date, we can't change the updated at date, we can't change who it was created by or when it was last updated. We also can't change the element number. Created at and created by are the individual and the time when the element was created. Updated at and updated by is the individual and the time the element was last updated. So if I made a change, for example, this says 9:29 a.m. is the last change. If I update this field here and I recollapse this, you'll see that my updated at changes. The element number is a number that can't be changed and is always sequential. Every category has its own element number set, and it's sequential as you create new items. for example, if I create a new field, the element number here is going to be number 2, and I can't change this value. All right, so that covers all of the general fields and the metadata fields that we have. There are 2 other field types that we're actually going to talk about in future lessons. We're going to dive deeper into them. And that is the formula field and the relationship field. Those are 2 field types that are going to have their own lessons, and we're going to dive into the specifics of how each work. The last thing I want to cover with fields is that model categories have some additional field options as well. I'm going to go into a model category of furniture and open up one of these items. And we're going to scroll to the bottom and create a few fields here. So I'm going to click on Edit Fields and create a new group called Revit Fields. You'll see that I have this special section of Revit fields that aren't available in categories that aren't model categories. So number 1, we have our model name. We have our model parameters, which allow you to display one or multiple parameters from your model inside of this category. Since we're looking at furniture, I can quickly choose the assembly code, the assembly description, the assembly name, and then I can choose to either show the labels of the parameters or hide them. When I create that field, that's what it will display. I can also create a field for the model version history, which will allow me to see in what version items were created, updated, or deleted. Lastly, we can create a model viewer field, which allows me to section box off a specific element and look at it based on these model settings. So we can do orthographic, and we'll just say isometric and create that. And so now if I come back into this category, you'll see that it's showing me, the model viewer is showing me this chair in my model, where it's at. It's showing me specifically when this item was created, and it's showing me the parameter data that we displayed, as well as the actual model name here. So that covers all of the different field types that we have inside of Layer, with the exception of formula and relationship fields. Both of those field types are ones we're going to cover in future lessons because they're more advanced field types. Hopefully that gives you a good idea of how you can use fields to design the way data is captured inside of your project.